Life Biosciences CEO Jerry McLaughlin joined us last fall for episode 166 of the Business of Biotech, an episode that did a pretty good job of digging into the dynamics of age-related disease and that entire space. What we didn't do on that episode was dig into the business mechanics of Life's outsourced manufacturing relationship. The company's lead candidate is a partial epigenetic reprogramming therapy that it's prepping for a 2025 IND and optic neuropathies. And it's pretty complex work, as is often the case with ATMP development. Not just any CDMO will do. That is, if any CDMO will do. I'm Matt Pillar. This is the Business of Biotech. And on this episode, Jerry is back. And he brought a friend to help give us a look under the hood of Life Biosciences' relationship with its outsourced manufacturing partner. That friend is the recently anointed president and CEO of Forge Biologics, John Maslowski. Forge is a CDMO that got into the cell and gene therapy outsourcing game early and has grown quickly as that space has blossomed. And John, who likely needs no introduction to folks in the CGT sector, has served the C-suite there since 2021, but just took the captain's chair in October of this year. He's on the board at ARM and Life Science Cares, and his bio chops span companies big and small, including Wyeth, Merck, Teva, FibroCell, Castle Creek, and more. Jerry, welcome back, and John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Matt. Happy to be here.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for having me back, too. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. I'm thrilled to have you guys on, and I want to start with Jerry. Before we get into the dynamics of the relationship between Forge and Life, I want to start with Jerry because, like I said, you were on most recently, just about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and I love having repeat guests. Oftentimes it's the span is considerably more than a year. So by the time I catch up with someone who's been on the show before, there's 2 or 3 years worth of progress to talk about. In this case, it's been just about a year, but I thought maybe you could give us a little update perhaps on what's happening at Life since, I think it was October of last year, and what's kind of exciting you about the progress going on there.
Yeah, Matt, happy to do it. Believe it or not, in a year's time, we've had a lot of progress and a lot of exciting things. And as you mentioned in your opening, we are on the precipice of entering the clinic, right? Filing an IND. It's here now. It's nearly upon us in mid-2025, and we expect to be the first in the partial epigenetic reprogramming space to enter the clinic. And as you mentioned, for 2 optic neuropathies. And so what we've been doing since we last talked, I think when we last talked, we had initial data from a non-human primate study in a NION model, which NION's basically a stroke in the back of the eye where you have damage to the retinal ganglion cells. And that was fantastic data that really elevated us out of the mouse world, right? A lot of great data in mice, but making that transition to an eye structure that reflects that of the human and being able to get across an inner limiting membrane and demonstrate expression of our therapy, which we call ER100, but we're delivering 3 transcription factors, OSK. And so that was fantastic, but in the year's time since then, we've really made good progress, which we'll hear about today in manufacturing, as well as we've replicated the non-human primate study, which we're building this company on rigor in science. And we thought it was a great step forward to move out of the mouse models into non-human primates, but then to replicate the data and show further expansion and support of restoration of visual function and preservation of retinal ganglion cells was really compelling. And we think it really puts us in a confident position going forward to IND. Where we are right now is we're right in the middle of IND enabling package, and things are going well there. But on top of that, it's been a big year from an organization standpoint, and I think it's important to mention, you keep your head down, you do good work, and you hope maybe someday you'll get recognized. And this was our year. I think we're starting to folks are starting to take notice. In March, we were recognized as one of the 12 hottest biotechs in the Boston area. And just to give you an idea, there's over 1,000 biotechs in the greater Boston area. So it was a pretty good recognition.
Yeah, I was going to say, it'd be quite a different story if you were one of the hottest 12 biotechs in Omaha. But that's
in Omaha, yeah, for sure. And then we earned a Great Place to Work certification in 2024 and 25. And what you have here, it's really the most definitive recognition as an employer of choice. And each year you have over 10,000 companies from 60 plus countries apply, and only about 1% to 2% qualify. And it's a really good certification. A lot of employees, prospective employees, look for that certification as a company that would be high on their list. And then most recently in October, we were one of 6 companies included in the Bostino Fire Award winners. And this award recognizes companies in the Boston area, not only for innovation in science, but also how we support the local community and the innovation ecosystem. So that's just as important to us, with how we serve our community. And so that's been a big year for us as an organization, and we're proud of the employees we have here, our life family. We're small now, but we will looking to grow into the future. And then most recently, we presented some additional data from our non-human primate study, our second study, and it expanded upon the data from previous, but also reinforced in this replication of the data. And it was presented at the American Academy of Ophthalmology, which is the largest, eye physician group in the world, and the largest meeting in the world. And in the post mortem of the meeting, Ophthalmology Times put out a top 10 takeaways. And our program, partial epigenetic reprogramming and ER100 specifically, was listed as the number 2 takeaway from this year's meeting. Really innovative. They're really looking particularly in glaucoma, looking beyond IOP lowering and looking at therapeutics that have the potential to reverse disease and restore retinal ganglion cells. Because we know that even once when you lower IOP effectively, glaucoma, the disease itself continues to move forward. So big year for us, and bigger year to come in 2025.
Yeah, sounds like some great momentum heading into IND in the clinic. Like I said, I've had conversations, 3 years spread with CEOs who had less to report than you just did. So congratulations. Take a break, take a rest. The holidays are coming. Take some time off if you need to. John, I want to turn to you. And I think I think I know the most exciting thing going on in your life right now. You're a couple months into the CEO's chair at Forge. If there's more exciting stuff going on, certainly share that with us. But I thought that'd be a nice segue into sort of how that transition unfolded.
Yeah, absolutely. Very excited and honored to be taking over this wonderful team at Forge. We've had this great partnership now for nearly a year with Ajinomoto after our acquisition. Mm-hmm. And, Tim Miller, who was our leader through the acquisition, through the birth and growth of Forge, decided for his career to go on and do new things. And we thank him for all of his entrepreneurship and leadership through the transition. But, very, lucky for me, and as I mentioned, honored to be asked by Ajinomoto to take over the helm and see this transition as we're now really positioning Forge going into more later stage production, more commercial minded discussions with some of our clients, and working with really great new technologies like Jerry and Sharon and Michelle and his teams, CMC needs on their program that you just discussed. So, great transition for me, really set up well with the team here. What I've noticed, though, maybe to give a quick update on Forge, is just seeing tremendous growth in the organization. And I think in areas where you want your CDMOs to grow, right? We're seeing expansions in our, in all of our technical operations groups, MS&T, our quality units are pacing properly with those. Meanwhile, they're still growing our systems as we are graduating now into more of a commercially minded support system. So a lot of that growth over the last year or so with Forge. And looking forward now, it's interesting, we talk in biotech about I have cash for a year, or I got a year and couple of years of runway, and here's my plan. Now working under, the umbrella of a much larger organization under Japan, we talk about the 2030 plan now and beyond. So it's, for us, it gives us an opportunity to focus less on, some of the funding and sort of banking side of the business, and really concentrate on what's really our master site plan, what's our execution plan over the course of the next, nearly a decade of gene therapy growth, as we all foresee the future really blossoming into more commercial products. And really, how do we not only treat rare diseases, but broader rare diseases, and now thinking about supplying non-rare diseases. So it's a really, great thought process we have here at Forge, and now with the ability to see down the road a bit and think about things like CapEx investments in real ways. It's really a wonderful time for us to be thinking about growth and seeing very good traction, through companies now funded and bringing really, really interesting technologies. And we're very lucky as we have the chance to work with them and really help them, move their development along.
Yeah, that's great. And the last time I talked with the CEO of Forge Biologics, it was Tim Miller, and I remember a good portion of our conversation. We kind of hovered on the development and growth happening in Columbus. I'm kind of playing off Jerry's recognition, Life Biosciences is a hot company in Boston. Not to discredit Columbus, you're not quite the biotech hub that Boston is. But at the time, Jerry and I talked, Columbus is just a few hours away from me. I see the city growing incredibly. Give us an update on the Columbus kind of atmosphere and how that's advantageous does it remain advantageous to Forge being in the Columbus area?
It's a great question. One I asked when I first joined Forge coming from Philadelphia,
Yeah.
Sort of advanced therapy hotbed along with the West Coast and Boston. And the question of talent and growth and everything in the area. Well, Nationwide Hospital, there's the birthplace of a lot of the original gene therapies that are now commercial, including, Invexis and Sarepta's products. And luckily I have a lot of team members here who come from those backgrounds and organizations. Not only is the city one of the fastest growing in the U.S., the life science, I'm very impressed with the life science presence here. More companies emerging, technologies, universities, quite frankly, putting out a lot of scientific majors that we've been very lucky to bring and seed our GMP and a lot of our process analytical development groups. So, I as it's a newer developing area, we do see technical talent. We see really wonderful growth, reasonable costs for building, is really an important part to remember, and a hub here that we can ship to, most. We do international shipments and U.S. shipments within a lot of very reasonable time frame. So for us, it's really became a very advantageous central area for us to concentrate our organization on, even though we have a global presence with our commercial sales force and other parts of our business. But really excited to see how the next years really grow the talent pool in the area in a way that groups like BioOhio are all contributing to that. So
Yeah, very cool. Good deal. Jerry, I want to turn back to you, and we'll start talking about the origins of the relationship between Life Biosciences and Forge. But before there was even Forge necessarily on your radar, Jerry, you talk about the momentum going on at Life Biosciences. At what point in that momentum, I think my notes say the partnership with Forge was came together, last spring. So prior to last spring, as you were as you were contemplating the outsourced manufacturing space and your next move there, what was the, catalyst for that?
Yeah. So it was when we moved from the mouse models into the non-human primate data, and when we were able to demonstrate expression in the retinal ganglion cells and restoration of visual function in the non-human primate model, where we were able to deliver our therapeutic across the inner limiting membrane intravitreally and then crossing through the inner membrane. With that positive results, we had prepped, we went to the board, and we made that decision. And it's not something we, as a small company, particularly in gene therapy, it is the most significant spend to date in the history of the company, and a major use of our remaining resources. So we needed confidence, and we staged sort of that as a key milestone and a trigger to set up the agreement, which ultimately was with Forge. But we had started the process well over a year prior.
Yeah. And what did that process look like? I mean, I don't expect you to go through it line by line.
No.
But what were the criteria that you were looking for? And then
I think it's criteria and then process. I think process is really important. Mm-hmm. And it's something I think as a small company, particularly when we're short-staffed, we own a company of 12 people. Sometimes the oversight on this process, but it's so important for the company. We don't pick the right partner, we're in trouble. So really, we look at team, and by team we mean the technical expertise and the history of those involved, knowing who will be involved, knowing their commitment to our program, and that's sort of a sense you have to get through repeated interactions and doing site visits and having meetings and having calls. And reviewing, and ultimately it's sort of an informed gut feel at the end. And then, are they eager to succeed? Are you just another customer, a number, or are you critically important to their business? And as a small company, our ER100, our lead program, is critical to our life as a company. And is it going to be as important to your partner? And a lot of folks can talk about that, but do they deliver in the end? And that's critically important. One, and two, can they meet timelines? We look at history of the company. And so in the case of Forge, we have to do a proxy for that. It's a history and the proven capabilities of the leadership team there. And we did our diligence on everyone there. And what we liked, in this case, just to cut to the chase on Forge, was we liked the fact that a guy like John not only had manufacturing expertise, but was an operator. And several others in their leadership team, whether it was from a regulatory standpoint or building out the facility. They had a long history of building and working in facilities. And so that gave us a lot of confidence, and they had a vision. These were folks just like us. Most of our management team, we've worked for 20 or 25 years in the industry, but we came to Life Biosciences because we had a shared vision of how we can change the world through HealthSpan, right? And so we saw the similar thing at Forge. So there's that connection as well, a shared vision, a shared mission. In the process of what we did, we started out with 10 or 12. Our senior vice president of CMC, which John had mentioned, Michel Wattier, he put a ton of work over months, interrogating, assessing technical expertise of 10 or 12 potential CROs. We actually had informal bids sent in from those and work plans. We then, through an arduous process, including bringing in, which I applaud for him, he brought in an outside consulting firm, consultants who worked in the gene therapy space for a long, long time to help evaluate each of these and identify where we may be missing things, right? They have a good understanding of the CROs, all their strengths and weaknesses. And so that helped us streamline and sort of put the process on a level playing field. Over time, we took that down to 6, and then we took it down to 3 for the more formal assessment, which involved site visits, not only by our CMC team, but I went on those site visits as well. And we had a chance to further evaluate the teams. And then getting final bids. Over time, those bids get more granular and more specific. You learn a lot in those interactions, and ultimately we made the decision that Forge was the most optimal partner for us from their focus, their vision, their capabilities, our needs, and what they could provide.
Yeah. On the capabilities note, I'm just curious for some perspective on this.
Yep.
It occurs to me that if you're the CEO of a company that's looking to take an antibody to IND and into the clinic, and you need an outsourcing partner, and you start with a list, you start with a list of 12, antibodies, ADCs, vaccines, you're probably going to start with a much bigger list because there are far more outsourced manufacturers out there working on those traditional biologics. And perhaps your winnowing down of that list is going to be a long and arduous process because you're looking for nuance. Like everybody can manufacture an antibody. In the gene therapy space, the requirements are far more unique and selective and complex. How did that impact that winnowing down process for you did you quickly go from 12 to 6 because you just realized hey, these first 6 we looked at or these 6 that we looked at simply don't have the technical capability to do what we do?
That's right. That was the easy part, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's good to start broad. You learn a lot about what offerings there are and whether there may be gaps in your thinking along the way, and you ask better questions of the other CROs. So we quickly were able to bring it down from 12 to 6. Plus, there's not a time to have a fulsome process, and it's not fair to the CRO. So we quickly were able to narrow it down to 6, largely based on technical expertise and just a feel of fit. You'd be amazed how sometimes you're just not a priority on someone's list, and that gives you a pretty big answer. And then from there, it got a little more serious, spending a lot more time, starting to involve others in the group, expanding just beyond the SVP of CMC, but also our CSO, and then bringing even in the executive team to pressure test the capabilities, just from a generalist perspective as well, and a business relationship. And that took us down to 3, and then ultimately we were able to make the decision, right? So that happened that process was well over a year from start to finish.
Yeah, I want to ask you one more question on that process. I promise I'll get to you, John. We'll get back to you.
Let Jerry tell the story. A good one.
Yeah. Well, and this is, this one, it's a little bit more esoteric, right? You talked about, determining that there was a fit that could see things through, right? That was going to give you the time, the attention, going to treat you like you're the most important molecule in their four walls. To your point, I mean, that's, it's easy to deliver lip service on that kind of thing. How do you vet that and sort of quantify it, not just qualify it? Like, yeah, I really like those guys. They're making a lot of promises that sound good to me.
Matt, I've been doing this for 35 years.
Yeah.
So John and I didn't know each other per se. Maybe we had met once or twice, but we have a lot of close friends in common. And also one of our scientists worked with one of their senior executives at a gene therapy company. We were able to, when we got down to the small list, we vet the management team too, particularly in the case of Forge. They were a new entity. They were a little bit of an unknown. Mm-hmm. We vetted the individuals separately from our interactions. I'll just be honest, that's what we do. I think
no, that's exactly what I was looking for. I mean, that's the valuable insight I'm looking for, right?
I mean, I just can't operate otherwise, right? I think that's incumbent upon us. Particularly, you have a choice there, right? Do you go with tried and true, or do you go with IBM, or do you go with Apple? And for us, Apple was the future, and we were able to get very comfortable with their integrity, their track record of success, and I think their ability, because several of them, including John, had worked in nascent biotechs, where we have to be flexible, we need great support, right? We don't have armies of people, and so we're going to rely on them as everyone says partner. But it's a partner in the foxhole because this is complicated stuff here, gene therapy. We're getting better at it and more predictable and higher confidence, and we'll get there. But you run into problems along the way. There's always challenges along the way, and we needed to know that the team on the other side was going to be there for us. And that's not only their background and where they come from, so they understand, but then building personal relationships. And there are simple things that you would be surprised. The business development team in Forge was just responsive to every question, every need in a timely fashion. That makes a difference for a small company because it's a window into the soul of the company.
Yeah.
Right. Before you're working primarily with BD. And then I'll tell you, when I went on a site visit, you're not only meeting with the team in the room, but I like to go into, John probably knows, but I kind of moseyed over to the break room, get a cup of coffee, and just see the interactions among folks over lunch and in the break room, right? What their attitude is and how they're operating. And I got to tell you, it's a high end. And we did our research on Columbus as well, because we had the same question: what's Columbus? Yeah, Columbus was known for financial services and insurance, right?
Yeah, in my household, it's known as a place my wife likes to go to shop.
Yeah, exactly, shopping. But it's amazing with Ohio State, Case Western, other universities, Cincinnati, with Cincinnati Children's, the sourcing for technical and STEM is amazing. And I mean, John probably could give statistics of how many people they have apply for their internships and for their jobs. It's unbelievable, and it's a great place to live, right? So we got very comfortable with it that they had the technical expertise and the right mindset and right attitude. So it was a really nice fit for us in the end. Yeah, are you going to take a little bit of chance going with the new kid on the block? But they're no longer that now. I think we picked right in terms of their success and their growth.
Yeah, very good. John, I'm going to give you, I want to ask you a question, but I want you to guard yourself from becoming, a chief commercial officer at Forge Biologics in your response.
I'll do my best.
So Jerry referenced BD sort of being the tip of the spear, the initial interface with a sponsor company. I've never worked for an outsourced biopharmaceutical manufacturer, but I've worked in plenty of environments with BD teams who overpromised on capabilities and then left ops holding the bag, so to speak. And I've covered this space. I haven't covered it for a long, long time, but I've covered it long enough to see that happen among in the outsourced manufacturing community. So the question I want to ask you is how, and I mean, like, I'd like you to answer this as objectively as possible. How do you guard against that in your role, your management team? How do you guard against Because a lot of this stuff we're seeing for the first time, folks, and it's easy to say, yeah, we'll take that challenge, and then turn around and go, wow, we signed up for something we can't deliver on. So how do you guard against that?
Well, it's a great question. And Matt, Jerry said this very well on the other side. Forge's management team has been on the other side of this. We all were drug developers coming into this role. And I think one thing that attracted me to Forge, coming from developing cell therapies for rare skin diseases, really was, can we build a CDMO that avoids the things we didn't like about working with CDMOs? One of which is exactly what you're talking about, is transparency, right? And I think it's very easy when you have a dedicated BD team that's really pushing hard, and I think they do it from a right part of their heart, to go out and really try to sell the wares of the organization. But I think we tried to set it up, and also being in the role of chief commercial officer previously, in a little bit of a different way. And it really is to make sure that we're very tightly connected to the technical side of our organization. What are our true capabilities at this point in time? And what do we honestly think we could be doing? Because sometimes these programs can be a year plus long as you're moving through development. Where will it be that? And making sure we're very clearly communicating that with the client. So, over-promising never buys you anything. And I've heard it plenty of times on the other side of the bench. And I think clients appreciate when you can be like, Forge is actually not prepared to do these particular things. Here's our plans to get there. Does that fit your needs? Now, here's an actual tangible thing we've done that try to manage this. So we've taken a little bit of a different approach when it comes to our sales force. So we do have, what we call it client development, which is, I think, more along the lines of a BD rep. But they're paired almost like in drug sales with a technical sales advisor. So really what this is now a technical sales expert, which is usually a team of AV scientists. We have PhDs. It almost reminds me of sort of like, like a sales sort of like medical liaison, right? Where they are paired with the sales rep to give the technical sort of readout, collection of information, collect the needs of the client, so we can marry the sales and operate and commercial side of our business a lot better with the technical side. Now, I don't want every scientist in the lab on every sales call, right? They need to be doing work in developing programs and PD and AD work. So we actually have a dedicated team who does that to connect what we're capable of now to where we are in the future. And they can speak the language of the client just as well. It's really, have that technical capability, translate that right up the sales and the proposals so they're clear of where we are now and what we can do. And then when we run through the relationship, once we're now a partner and they have a client relations rep, they continue the process to help translate things, challenges in manufacturing or new steps we're about to take, stage gate moving into, say, GMP from PD. And they can help partner and make sure that communication is clear. Because I think really one of the biggest challenges, if you lose a step or there's a whisper down the lane somewhere away there, you can lose the client's sort of trust if all of a sudden the message is wrong coming through. So we put some safeguards in place to try to prevent that.
Yeah. All right, very good. I appreciate your objectivity and concrete examples in that response. Thank you, John. Jerry, I want to talk a little bit about the specifics of what Forge is doing for you. And I'm not even sure what the best way to go about posing this question is to you, but from what I understand, Forge is going to be supporting Life Bio's AAV process development, toxicology, CMGP manufacturing, and analytical services. So the way I frame it up is like, I just put it on your plate, Jerry, to tell me what considerations went into each of those four specific areas in your analysis of Forge's capabilities.
So a little bit about the technical expertise, those will be working, and the talent in the room, right, or in the building. And I think one of the things, and so we look at that in every company, right, and then the facility itself. If you haven't been there, you should really go visit their facility. I think it's as John was saying, and I'm not just saying it, but it's quite impressive. I think it was their collective learning of what they didn't like about a facility, from how you enter a room, how, if something breaks down, you can fix it from the roof. If you want to keep a sterile room, you can put material in a lockbox that's separated from one room to the next, so you don't lose time. There's a lot of really interesting things from a facility standpoint. So that matters to us. And so the other thing that I think was a real attractive piece for Forge when we were looking at this versus others was they have their own therapeutic and development. And so they were making, I assume they were making lots of learnings. We say mistakes, lots of learnings along the way that we'll benefit from. And so that was it. That was intriguing to us and very interesting that they were paving the way and putting their own money behind their own process, right? Mm-hmm. And they have their own therapeutic and development. So that made a difference from a toxicology standpoint to us, and so the other processes. And then from a scale up, they are now, and boy, when we first started talking to you, it was not even where it is today, but 500 liter, they were able to go to 500 liter and pretty soon. I think John, you're now 5,000, right? So we could take it, and we have, as you were saying earlier, we have for our optic neuropathy candidate ER100, we have a narrow base NION, which is a stroke in the back of the eye, small numbers, but primary open-angle glaucoma is a large population that we think we can help. And so we're going to need scale eventually when we transition to commercial manufacturing. And the hope is we want to be able to stay in the same facility. So that's another thing. And then also they started with more than one suite. There are CROs with only one suite. Something goes down, you're out of luck. Your timelines are shot. And for us, an executive in a biotech firm, time is my biggest enemy. Time is our cost of capital is so high as a small biotech that we really time kills. And so they had 3 suites, and I think you're in excess of 15 now, John, at this point.
Yeah, we have 20 operational.
20 now. Yeah. And so that really was another thing we looked at. And then the other, finally, and this was it gets back to, once again, I think having their own therapeutic. Early on, they had their own methods internally. They outsource very few things, very few items, and it's certain micro that you would want to outsource anyway because you don't want to contaminate the facility. So they had their own methods in place, which is another advantage, right? So as we looked, and I get back to, once again, Matt, they were small, we were small in our own worlds, and it was a perfect fit at our stage and where we were headed and where they were going. And so we've been able to watch them grow, and as we advance, and we like to think we get the early mover attention now because we're one of the early folks to go in,
right?
And that's important to us as well. So we had a chance to build strong relationships before they got to where they are today.
Yeah, very good. Well, I do want to see it, Jerry. You started this response out by saying you got to go down and check it out. I haven't seen it firsthand. I've had plenty of interaction with execs and folks from Forge. John, I mean, you're in Philly. I'm assuming you probably, when you go out to Columbus, you probably take a short flight over there. But if you ever drive, I live about halfway between Erie and Pittsburgh. So you drive right by my house on your way there. Just pick me up. We'll go out and have a look.
I'm happy to grab you and come out for a tour.
Yeah.
I'm here every week.